Welcome to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today I have Craig and Amanda with Cabot, and we're going to be talking about cheese. We're going to be talking about over 100 years of cheese making, and of course, talk about the farms, and we're going to be tasting some fabulous cheeses through here. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig and Amanda, and they're going to start up. Craig, Amanda?
So we are here, as Michael said, representing the Cabot Creamery Co-operative. And so, but we hold two very different roles. So I am a dairy farmer and Craig is like cheese extraordinaire. Like I'm sure there's a more professional title and he'll give you that, but that's how I know him. And so that's me and my dog Brie. It is only appropriate that my dog be given a dairy-derived name. My family and I have a dairy farm in the northwest corner of Connecticut. And we, in addition to caring for 350 cows, we also end up caring for about 600 acres of land, which grows the crops to feed our cows. And so the milk from my farm typically goes to the plant where we make Cabot butter. And in fact, our family was featured on the back of the salted butter package at the grocery store for a while. So that's probably my biggest claim to fame. And so we have been members of the Cabot Cooperative since the very first day we started milking cows in 1949.
All right, so my name is Craig Gile. So I usually like to say that I've been in the cheese industry for about 40 years. So I started off kind of in Amanda's role. I grew up on a small family farm in northern Vermont in the Northeast Kingdom. So I did that until I was about 18 and then left the house and went off to college. And then after school, I basically started right at Cabot directly then. So luckily, I've been fortunate enough to play a lot of different roles. I've been with Cabot for about 18 years, and I've done a lot of different roles. But I think one of my favorite out of the group was being a cheese grater or a cheese taster. So yeah, it's been a great time. It's allowed me to do not only just have a lot of exposure and having days where I would spend tasting hundreds of our cheeses, but it's given me a chance to take part in some of the different contests throughout, and to get a chance to get out in the field and meet a lot of the customers, meet a lot of the cheesemongers that help introduce customers to our products. So it's been a great time working here at Cabot.
So just to do a quick run through of the reasons that you should love Cabot if you don't already. And the first that tops the list is that we have in fact received the award identifying our cheese as the world's best cheddar. Like that's not just like a marketing ploy, that's legitimate. And so we are really proud of the countless awards that we receive each year for the quality of our cheese, as well as our other dairy products. And what is really cool, and maybe like not enough people understand, that our cheddar is lactose-free. And the aging process, the natural aging process, is what allows us to, in fact, provide a lactose-free product. So if you are making a charcuterie board for people that are concerned about lactose, don't skimp on the cheddar cheese. They can eat it without concern. We are a cooperative of New England and New York dairy farmers. So the farmers are the member owners of our cooperative. And in fact, our board of directors are farmers themselves. A lot of people associate Cabot as being a Vermont-based company. And while that's where we started, we have grown to be able to embrace farms from all over New England and New York. We are also a certified B Corp. And so we, since I think 2012, have been audited on our relationship with our customers, our environment, our social programs, the way that we treat our employees. And so all of that wrapped up allows us to get scored and actually certified that we are using our business, the Cabot Cooperative, as a means for good. And it's a really cool program. And in fact, you can find that B Corp certification logo on a lot of our dairy products. And if this isn't a testament to having high quality products, we have been doing this since 1919. we have been a farmer-owned cooperative for over 100 years. And we are looking ahead at how we can keep on being here as a producer and supplier of quality cheese products for another 100 years. So just a little background on the Cabot farm families, because these are the people that put in the work to care for the cows, to make the milk that we then rely on a lot of Cabot employees to turn into the Cabot products that we're going to review today. But the first and most critical piece to that pie is the cow. So my day is spent, the very first chore that I do each day is making the food that I feed my cows. They get breakfast before I do. So caring for cows is what ensures that they are going to provide us high quality milk to make into Cabot products. And the reality is that our cooperative is so focused on community because we rely on the farmers that are so active in their own communities. And so that relationship, that dynamic is across the board from the farmer members all the way up to the company and the cooperative level. And it's me along with 700 other farm families that are committed to producing a nutrient-rich product that Cabot processes into really incredible products. Craig, take it away.
All right. So as Amanda mentioned, we have farmer owners all over New England and big portions of New York. So in order to kind of be able to get a hold of that milk and be able to manufacture that fresh milk into product, it's been pretty advantageous for us to have plants kind of all over New England and New York. So we have 3 cheddar plants, one in Middlebury, one in Cabot, and one in Chattaquay, New York. We have a butter operation in West Springfield, and then in Cabot, near our manufacturing plant, we also have a cut and wrap operation. So again, this allows us to kind of work with all of our farmer owners, get the milk in fresh to be able to make products for you, because, you know, as Amanda's mentioned, I mean, the most important part of cheese making ultimately is going to be the milk. You know, if you can't start off with fresh milk, it's you're never going to be able to make a great product. So yeah, that's kind of where this is where our facilities are at. So throughout all these different facilities, also we have kind of warehouses all over the place. So one of the things that we end up doing is because if you know New England style cheddar, it's really known for like big, robust flavors. And one of the things that we have to do to be able to kind of bring product to you that's going to be consistent and high quality, we need to make sure that we have cheese graters that basically follow this cheese throughout its lifespan, right? And we basically kind of develop a personality for these cheeses and start to assign them exactly where they want to go. So, you know, as we go over some of our profiles, like an extra sharp or a seriously sharp that are kind of in that 12 to 14 month range, that we don't just make a cheese and say, okay, we've made a cheese, this is going to be an extra sharp, or this is going to be a 3-year product. That cheese gets selected by professional graders over time and gets steered around to be able to fit those exact profiles. So what we end up doing is cheese gets sent to aging warehouses kind of all over New England and New York. And then the cheese graders, we go out and we start testing cheese at about 2 months of age, typically. And then every 4 months after that, we revisit that cheese and we have our notes and we kind of go through. We have a profile that's made up of not only what our past grading terminology was, you know, talking about kind of what's the sourness levels, the bitterness levels in the cheese, but, you know, we have a lot of the specs behind the cheese, kind of, you know, pH levels at different levels, moisture after it's been produced. So, you know, we have kind of all these like little hints to be able to put together a story of where we think that cheese is ultimately going to go grade out best. So then, yeah, we assign that to a cheese, and then we kind of keep revisiting that over and over again. So I mean, in simple, what we end up doing is, you know, an average cheese vat has a cheese block that follows that vat around. And the graders will go out. We'll kind of, what we have is a cheese trier, which is basically, I don't have one on me right now, but it's basically like a half knife moon that you can plug into the cheese, and then you pull out a core sample. And one of the things that you're looking at, you end up smelling the cheese, you end up looking at the outside of it. And this whole time, you're just looking for little hints of, you know, what is this going to taste like? What's the body going to be like? And what is it going to turn into eventually? We kind of feel out how the body's going to be, and then we end up tasting it. And then you just spend some time with it. You write down a bunch of notes on exactly kind of where that cheese is at and where it's going to go. So I think by that time the cheese gets to your package, we have a pretty big profile already built out on making sure that we kind of bring that cheese to you, so it's going to be consistent every time. Okay, if you want to hop to the next slide. And as Amanda's mentioned a couple of different times, you know, we have won awards saying World's Best Cheddar, and give just numerous other awards on top of that. And we tend to pride ourselves on basically not just how customers are doing, but you know, professionals in the industry, cheesemongers in the industry, you know, all that feedback is extremely important to us. So not only do we we find lots of ways to engage with customers to see what they're thinking about our product, you know, what they're using to cook with it, what they're using to pair with it. But, you know, it's great to also kind of get a hold of some of these bigger organizations like the American Cheese Society or the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association and enter our products into these contests and actually, you know, get awards from some of the experts in the industry. So it's been a big point of pride among a lot of our cheesemakers and farmers. So.
Yeah, the farmers get, I mean, when there's a new award, like it just like rejuvenates them. Like they just feel so good about the fact that all their work is actually delivering and providing like our whole cooperative, everybody that works for us, a recognition that like we're doing a good job.
You know, when we talk about the farms in that and over 100 years, let's elaborate a little bit more about that. You know, how do you get the milk to the creamery? You know, how's that kind of work? And you know, some of these historical farms. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So logistically from the farm side, and I'll let Craig kind of wrap it up, but we basically, the cooperative, the service that the cooperative provides to the dairy farmer members is that I am responsible for growing the crops, feeding my cows, and making sure that the milk ends up in our bulk tank. But from there, I am hands off. That's the value and the support that the cooperative gives me as a dairy farmer is I get to focus on what I'm really good at, which is caring for my cows, and they deal with the logistics, which I imagine some days is a nightmare. But we have an entire staff dedicated to deciding where the trucks go, where they're picking up from, what time they're picking up. And obviously there's a lot of like wrenches that get thrown into the plan. If there's a winter storm, it's Christmas. I mean, and the reality is that we don't turn our cows off. Like they are providing milk 365 days a year, which means that there needs to be a plan for picking that milk up 365 days a year. And so that milk truck is like clockwork. It pulls into our yard just about the same time every single day, literally including Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. And the cooperative identifies what the capacity is for each of our processing plants, what times those loads are coming through, and where that milk is coming from. And so for me, I don't even have to think about it. The cooperative is the one that really manages that. And Craig, maybe you want to add to that.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of logistics that have to go behind this. As Amanda said, the cows don't take a nap when it comes to producing milk. So that milk is always going to come in. And again, with all these different locations, I mean, we do a lot of coordinating to make sure that, you know, trucks don't even just show up at the plant also, right? Like we have to, before we take milk into the plant, there's a lot of testing that goes on, you know, that goes on at Amanda's level in the bulk, in her bulk tank. And all these like results from the testing are actually looked at before the milk actually enters the plant. So once the milk arrives at one of the plants, the milk is testing it again. And it's brought in, we have labs at each of these locations that will actually look through to make sure that the milk is acceptable before it's even taken into the plant. So yeah, it's a lot of logistics that have to go into this to make it work.
Is everybody using the same cattle? We're using Holsteins, or is there a mix of animals? What's it like on your farm?
So my farm is exclusively Holstein. So that's the black and white cow. And that is certainly the most prominent breed for our dairy farms, largely because they are just very productive animals. They are very reliable when it comes to producing a lot of milk. And as a dairy farmer, we're mostly paid on the volume of milk, or for most of our history as a dairy farm, we have been. But there's a lot of farms that actually have a lot of Jersey cows, which are the doe-eyed, pretty brown cows, but they are troublemakers. So don't let any Jersey farmer make you think that they're like a walk in the park. But the benefit that Jersey cows provide is that they tend to have higher butter fat in their milk. So there's added value to that milk. And so you'll see there are brands where you can buy 100% Jersey milk, and it is probably going to taste richer and creamier. But Holsteins, the black and white, is the standard. We do have a dairy farm in New Hampshire that has milking shorthorns, which is just another breed. They kind of have a red tone to their hair. And so there's probably up to 10 breeds that are common, but the number one, I would say, across the US and even our region is that Holstein cow.
So Craig, when you're doing the grading, how often do you grade, and how often do you, do the process of determining which is going out, which is going to age longer?
Yeah, I mean, so that's basically being done every day. So we have a staff of 3 graders, and they're out, I'd say, in the field at least 4, if not 5 days a week, depending on their schedules. Yeah, so and so basically every time we're grading, that's exactly what you're looking for. So you kind of figure it out beforehand, you contact the warehouse, they drop all your samples for you, so you're ready to go. We travel out to wherever we're going to go, and then we have a stack of paperwork that has all of our past gradings, has all the analyticals and make sheets from those cheeses. So yeah, we're able to just start grading from there. And then we have a bunch of codes that we use to allow us to know kind of what profile this is going into. But at that time, you start to decide, is this going to make a better sharp, an extra sharp, seriously sharp? Could this make a long age, 2, 3, 5-year-old cheese? And above and beyond that, it also functionally what somebody might be looking for in the marketplace factors into this also. So something like seriously sharp, you might end up having, if you're in your local deli and you're buying extra sharp or seriously sharp, the graders have to actually go out and make sure that we're kind of selecting cheese that's made for slicing also, or if you're buying our shingle slices, that cheese wasn't just selected as an extra sharp, but it was also selected as an extra sharp that should slice well also, right? So it's not just the flavor profiles, but the kind of body and form are starting to have a bigger effect on cheese style, cheese grading also selecting. So pretty much every day, that's what graders are doing, are babysitting cheese and kind of steering them into the right categories.
All right, so before we start into each of the different cheeses, do you have anything else you want to add before we move on?
I mean, I'll just say that I think that babysitting cheese sounds like a better job than babysitting cows someday. But like it is incredible. Like we, as a dairy farmer member of this cooperative, to have people like Craig that are just, I mean, he's been with us a long time, and like to be able to have people that are so dedicated to turning what I'm doing on my farm into a really incredible high quality product that we're so proud to put on shelves all across the country. That's, I think, a testament to the core of our business. And so like, I'm really excited about going through the selected cheeses that we've got here. I feel like I'm going to even learn something.
All right, so Alpine, which I've also got here. Sorry, a little glare on the light. So the Alpine one, this has been one of our most exciting cheeses that we've come out with, I think, in the last decade. So, innovation in cheese products and in cheese in the last few years, a lot of innovation has come from basically selling cheese in different formats, right, in different forms. So, I mean, outside of, before this, a lot of kind of innovation also comes from basically coming up with different flavored cheeses, right? What's been exciting about Alpine, this isn't like a cheese where we've just added flavoring into it, right? To give it kind of these sweet nutty notes. So we worked with some of our culture specialists to basically develop a recipe that took us, quite a few years to basically from the ground up. So this cheese, the cultures within the cheese actually produce a lot of these like new kind of sweet and nutty notes to it. So, it's got it's a pretty unique cheese where it does have a lot of the same characteristics of a cheddar, right? So it'll have, kind of a lot of that acidity to the flavor, a little bit of bitterness to it, the same kind of body as a cheddar has. But then it has a lot of similar characteristics, like I think a lot of the same nuttiness you might find in the Gouda, or some of that kind of like sweetness that you might find in a Parmesan. So again, it's a pretty unique cheese. So I'm interested to hear what you've come up with some of your pairing recommendations for it.
And I will say, when I do cheese demos, when I go to grocery stores or fairs or events, and I'm sampling out a range of cheeses, so usually it's like a seriously sharp, and we might have like a vintage, and then we have the Alpine, and every time when like they don't think anything of the names of the cheese when they're trying it, because most people, it's free cheese, they're excited, whatever. But whenever anybody puts that cube of Alpine cheese in their mouth, their eyes get big. Like they have a physical reaction. They're just like, whoa, like that is delicious. Like it is actually amazing how over and over and over that reaction it never gets old. People get really excited because it's such a unique flavor. They're not expecting it. Oh, and Craig, do you see? April's looking to see when we're gonna make Alpine into a cracker cut.
Oh, I don't know if there's any plans for it immediately, but again, it's been a huge crowd favorite, as Amanda's mentioned. Anybody that actually tries this cheese is always, you can kind of just see them physically taken aback. So I would think kind of with the success going on with cracker cuts, I mean, it's always a possibility eventually. Because again, if you're looking for, as you're kind of, if you're, any kind of little get together that you're having, especially with football season playoffs coming up, I mean, if you're looking for something that's going to really be memorable to folks, I mean, adding Alpine to your lineup you're going to get a lot of your guests asking like, okay, what is this cheese? Where did you get this? So it's pretty memorable.
Pairing wise, what I did was, well, first off, I think that this is a fabulous cheese. I really love the characteristic flavors. I love that it has that Parmesan-ish flavor to it. To me, there's a little bit of a nuttiness that's in there that just really brings out some nice comforting flavors. As a matter of fact, I thought about this as in a fondue because it has all those nice flavors, and I think that it would be really good as well. So beer wise, I picked a wheat beer or, similar. Excuse me, Blue Moon, they're Belgian white. And I wanted something that didn't really have a lot of hoppiness, but it will blend in really, really well. Kind of bring out a little bit more of the wheat flavors of the beer. And I'm pairing it up with a peach ginger. And I thought that the sweetness of the peach and then a little hint of the heat from a ginger should work really well. And then as a biscuit, I have the Effie's, and I'm using the corn. I really like the simpleness of it. I also like the oat cakes. I think that either one work really well, but I really like the flavors that brings, and having all these together, it works out, really fun. So that's my pairing. What do you guys usually do?
I like the idea with a little touch of ginger on there. That's great. You want to start them off, Amanda?
Well, yeah. So I'm a little bit nervous because I'm with like two professionals here. So I honestly
it's supposed to be approachable. It's not supposed to be nerve-wracking. You're supposed to have fun.
So, I mean, I for the Alpine, honestly, like I do maybe less of a pairing and more the way that I incorporate it into my cooking. Like I love adding Alpine to my mac and cheese. Like it just takes it to the next level. And I mean, that's my go-to so that I can make my mac and cheese better than like other people's mac and cheese. But yeah, let's see. I don't have a beverage selection. Like I appreciate the Blue Moon recommendation because I admittedly am pretty bad at figuring out what drinks to add with my cheese. Craig, let me hear. What have you got?
So with Alpine, I mean, I kind of part of it when I'm serving it, I like to keep it a little bit simple. So I kind of like just playing off of the sweetness that's already going on with it. So I think a lot of times just straight up pairing it with other fresh fruits, right? Kind of light flavored ones, apples, I think tend to work out pretty pretty well with it. For beverage pairings, I mean, I think it actually works really well with ciders, right? So you don't, you're not competing with any kind of that bitterness of a lot of other beers. If if you're going with a pairing theory of trying to, maybe like versus like and like, I think yeah, either kind of like either a sweeter white, kind of like some of the some of the Rieslings out there that are a little bit more sweet, or again, so I think ciders tend to work really well with this.
And I was looking at some of the Cabot on the website. There's pairings, and they have it by spreads or by charcuterie or by chocolate. But I was really intrigued by the Alpine paired with thyme. Like if you're doing herb blends, I love thyme. So like to find a way to like justify using it more, like that's okay with me.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, I thought about pairing it up with one of the rosemary flatbreads as well, because the rosemary in that would work really well. But it has enough of structure that I don't want to interfere with it. It doesn't need to have that. I think the sweetness of the peach and a little heat from the ginger kind of brings out a little bit more of the buttery flavors. And of course, brings out a little more oomph in the cheese. So, that's a kind of direction I went. I actually have in my book, which is Beer Cheese Stories, 300 pairings. And one of the pairings is with the Alpine cheese.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
that's excellent.
Because I've enjoyed that for a long time.
The 75% sharp. So I will say, I don't seek this out personally, because I just accept that when I am going to eat cheese, it's going to be the full fat version of cheese. But when I'm doing cheese demos, there's so many people that are looking for this, that are apparently better at like following their New Year's resolution and actually like trying to maintain a certain calorie count. And I guess I justify doing my physical labor each day as a reason that I can just eat as much cheese as I want. But there is absolutely a demand for lighter versions of our cheddar. And what is nice about this product is that it ends up actually cutting so that it doesn't crumble. And so if you are doing like a cheese box for your kid, or if you're doing a charcuterie board and you just don't want to deal with having little pieces of cheese break off, which cheddars tend to do, these lighter cheeses ended up being a really good way around that. And actually a cool thing might be to put some light cheddar on your charcuterie and see if people even notice. Like maybe they're going to eat it thinking that they're really like going gangbusters. And in fact, it's actually a lighter version.
Yeah, so the 75%, kind of what Amanda talked about was, you do have a lot of people out there, depending on what kind of diet they're following. I know there's kind of a lot of debate about kind of, what levels of fat that you want to have in your diet. But when it comes down to, I think dieting tends to be, it's pretty individual what people are focused on. And I think one of the things that some people will focus on is the fat levels. So, it's good to be able to have that alternative out there with our 75% light for people that really are kind of focused on that fat portion of it, but still don't want to cut cheese completely out. So again, as the title says, it's 75% of the fat has been removed from that cheese. So what we've done, we've been creating this cheese now for, upwards of 15, 20 years. So our expert cheese makers, not only they have, almost probably 2 decades under their belt of making this product, but we work with a lot of experts in the industry to be able to kind of get to, obviously fat adds a lot of flavor to cheese. So we've worked with them to be able to find ways to kind of add extra flavor to this product. So I think, for anyone that has a diet going on that is focused on, that's either focused on the fat levels, or, if you're, especially as I think one of the ways that I like to use it the most, like if you're actually just using cheese kind of as an ingredient, there again, maybe you're making like a quesadilla where you kind of just want that like, melted kind of texture to it more than you are looking for, the cheese to kind of dominate the flavor profile. I think 75 is it's a good addition to that.
And to the fact that in one serving, you're still getting 9 grams of protein. Like, I think that's what's really incredible about dairy products, like regardless of the fat content. I mean, you could be drinking 1% milk or whole milk, but the protein is still there. And so I think a lot of times people are looking to try to good solid protein sources, and this is a really good one, and it's reducing the total number of calories.
Exactly. And again, if you're trying to, I mean, depending on if you're using it as a cooking cheese anyway, you know, I'm always pushing people to kind of do hybrids of combining cheeses together when they cook with it, right? Whether or not it's a mac and cheese, you know, two different styles of cheese altogether. But I think 75 kind of meets that also, where again, if you can shred up the cheese and, you know, if maybe you're making nachos and, you know, if you are concerned about fat levels at all, maybe you're doing half full flavor and half 75, right? So I don't know what the math comes out on that, but you know, it's a little bit less than 100%. So I think, you know, again, if you have any kind of area in your diet where you're concerned about it, again, you don't have to go whole hog and only do 75%. You can kind of like, you know, the cheese is functionally shreds very well. So feel free to kind of combine it with some other cheeses also.
All right. So I'm pairing this up with Yingling, their traditional lager, which is, you know, as you can see, it's kind of a dark lager. Kind of more like a Vienna lager, so there's some maltiness to it. So because it's not as sharp as the others, it's you know, it has a little bit of tang, but I really wanted to bring up the maltiness to it. But it's also, you know, like you said before, it's not waning on flavor. It definitely has a lot of flavor characteristic to it. So one of my favorite pairings with cheddars is mango chutney. And Virginia Chutney does a magnificent job. And I had him on a segment once, and he talked about mangoes as being the most popular condiment in the world because there's more people that enjoy mangoes than anything else. I mean, apart from like ketchup or something. But so yeah, so a little mango chutney, and then this is where I add in the rosemary. I have a rosemary rustic bakery and rosemary, a little olive oil in it, and it's just really kind of light. You could actually have these two together, but when you add in a little bit of this chutney, you get that spiciness that comes along with it, a little bit of sweetness, and the sweetness actually will bring a little more tanginess. So you have that sweet, and then the cheese becomes actually tangier. So it's really nice.
That's great. I love the idea with the mango. I think that's spot on. So,
I don't
I
think I use mango enough in my life, actually. So this is an appreciated like reason to like have another mango item in my life. So to your point, like we make a product in our farm market here, a Plum Gumbo, and so it kind of has it serves both as a savory, but also like you can pair it with like a duck or a pork. And so, but you can also do it as a spread. And so to be able to have kind of like the richness of that plum flavor, it like helps kind of deal with the fact that you've got a lighter cheese. And so just like smear a little bit of that on some toasted French bread and the light cheddar, and like, boom, it's good.
Yeah. The maltiness of the beer doesn't overpower it, doesn't overcome it. It actually brings out again, I think it brings out a little butter. So there's a little more buttery addition that actually sweetens the flatbread up a little bit. And then you get that nice tang coming in there. So it's really a nice combination of flavors. And the cheese and the beer just work really well together just by themselves.
That's great. I'll have to try that combination. Yeah, right now, I think when I think back on times where I've had 75 when it comes to usually, I mean, I think I've like times where, you know, it's a nice hot day out and you're drinking like a Prosecco and, you know, you're snacking on something like, you know, apples or, you know, grapes, something that's not too overpowering where you don't want anything not overpowering, and just having like a nice light 75 that's only a couple of months old, a little bit of flavor, I think always tends to do pretty well.
Yeah, I think that the advantage that you have here is that it is what it is that the flavors are all there. You know, really not sacrificing this. I did tacos the other night, and I used half of this and then half of the serious because I don't really want to have that much tanginess, but I want to have all the cheddar flavor. And I had all the cheddar flavor, and it was just a nice combination of the two together.
So admittedly, it was only just now looking at that slide that I don't know that I'd ever thought before about this being the ingredient for the best pimento cheese. So now, like, that's something that I need to be aware of for the future. Cabot also is the one that introduced me to pimento cheese. I don't think I mean, maybe that's a Southern thing. Like, I, as a Connecticut dairy farmer, was not aware of pimento cheese as a thing. But I will say that for me personally, in my household of one, me and my dog, extra sharp is like extra sharp and seriously sharp are like the mainstay in my fridge. Kind of like how April always has her cracker cuts. Like, this 8-ounce bar is just like, it is as critical as like coffee and milk in my refrigerator. And so as the slide showed, that there is some crumbliness, so it's not going to be the same texture as that 75%. But it also speaks to just kind of like the aging of it and that sharpness that comes with it. And so for me, like, this is just the default cheese. Like, it will be used for whatever I'm baking or cooking. It's just the easiest go-to because it has that cheddar profile, but it's not also like the premium, like 5-year cheddar where I really reserve that for like a special like cheese board. This, I just feel really comfortable with it being used for any cheese purpose.
Yeah, I think like with the extra sharp and, you know, then bringing up the seriously, it's kind of hard to talk about them without kind of talking about the difference between the two. So since that'll probably be a question anyway, I'll just tackle it now. But so, you know, extra sharp and seriously sharp are kind of the big flagship products that we have. And, you know, when people kind of think about East Coast style flavor profiles, right? Or, you know, these, you know, they kind of think about this extra sharp flavor profile, right? So for us, you know, and what we try to do in the cheese grading side of it, the idea with the extra sharp is we want to have consistency be king. So we want to have every time you open that package, we want to have not just the flavor level, right? We want to have the same kind of acidity, sharpness going on, maybe a slight little hint of bitterness to it. But we also want to have the texture be the same, right? So every time kind of hopefully you're getting like a fairly crumbly texture to it. So that's kind of like consistency is king with the extra sharp. When it comes to seriously sharp, the big difference between the two, a lot of times they're a similar age profile. Maybe a lot of times seriously might be slightly older. But what we try to do is, you know, that's kind of the profile of the extra sharp, but there's a lot of other interesting flavors that come over time with the natural aging of cheddar, right? So you might have sweetness flavors or nuttiness flavors going on, or you might just kind of have like an imbalance going on where some cheeses just have like a really dominant, you know, acid flavor profile to them and an acid or a sweet flavor profile. And it's not necessarily a bad cheese, but if you're looking for a customer that's looking for consistency, you know, that's who we want to buy the extra sharp. But, you know, with all these other really cool, interesting flavor profiles that are coming out, you know, that's kind of where seriously sharp fits in. And that tends to be like, it's a little bit more of an adventurous cheese, right? Not bad profiles. I mean, we have a place to, you know, to get rid of that cheese too. But when it comes to just kind of interesting, long aged natural cheddar flavors, we kind of leave that for the seriously sharp side of it. So that's just kind of the answer beforehand, the kind of difference between those two flavor profiles. So when it comes to the extra sharp, again, it's going to hopefully have that same kind of degree of kind of what we call a Northeast bite, but again, it's kind of the same level of like acidity and bitterness every time. So yeah, I think it's again everyday kind of functional cheese. It's not also an excellent table cheese. It's great to cook with. It's kind of just it's kind of the workhorse of the lineup. Yeah, interested to see what you've paired with this one.
Well, you know, with the sharpness that you have in there, but what I have to tell you that, you know, at my first time judging at the International Cheese Awards, I had 51 cheddars, and I was my co-judge was the cheesemaker for Wexford Irish Cheddar, and we went through every one, and all 51 were different, and they had different characteristics and all of that. And what's interesting here is that you know, the butter really comes out in this. You know, you're not you're not sacrificing that to make it tangy or to make it salty. There's maybe a hint of salt, not predominant. It's not really in there that much. It's just a nice hint, but the balance is just, for me, absolutely perfect. There's a nice tanginess. I would say kind of like maybe like a Myers lemon tang, not the flavor, but the tanginess of it. And then butter balanced in there. And it's like, just a really nice combination. So I wanted some hoppiness here, but I didn't want to go to full IPA out there. So I went with the Lagunitas little something. And that's got some hoppiness to it. It's got a nice balance, but it also has a nice malt background. And I wanted to capitalize the malting on there. And then as for a flavor, I chose back to Bonnie's Jams again. And this is her red pepper jelly that has got a nice kick and spiciness to it. And I really like that with cheddars. I think that works out really well. And to kind of cool it down a little bit, I have the Effies, and this is their Rye Cake. And the rye, I really like how I think natural earthy that brings it. So you get that little bit of earthiness. I would say that you put this together just with the cheese and it gives you a little bit of a bandage wrap flavor. And then you add the spices to it and it brings out more butter. And then you add the beer to it and the tanginess comes out. So that's what I got.
Nice, that's a great mix. And I think the texture together with the Effies and the kind of crumbly body of the extra sharp probably go pretty well together.
Well, I'm realizing now that Craig and I pulled the short straw here because we should be in Florida together having this segment, because I am just here with 6 bars of cheese, which no complaints, but your spread, Michael, is incredible. I also I think I love hot pepper jelly. And so I think when there's an opportunity to really accentuate the creaminess of the cheese by having that little bit of a kick, that's a go-to for sure. We also have a raspberry jalapeno jam. And I really when there's an opportunity to throw that little zing in like you did with that ginger earlier. That is it. The extra sharp just ends up being such a nice kind of delivery, I guess, for all those flavors. I also love that your dog has just come to check things out. I intentionally gave my dog a cheese stick so that she would stay on her bed for the duration of this segment. But your dog is smarter than mine. She doesn't realize that I've got copious amounts of cheese hanging out here. But yeah, so and for me, I mean, we're talking about beer, but I tend to also end up with either a Cabernet or Merlot that I'm having with my cheese at the end of my work day.
Good suggestion. Yeah, I think so. On mine, I mean, God, there's so many fun flavors going on here. It's a lot of pairing options. I mean, one thing I do like that you bring up that a lot of people don't always kind of pick up on, but kind of that kind of the tangy notes to it, right? It's almost kind of like a fresh citrus kind of sourness that comes with our extra sharp. And yeah, so playing off that, I mean, I think kind of going on the other side of the coast from Lagunitas, but I think, trying to find an IPA that's kind of maybe some Cascade hops that's not overboard, like in a kind of an East Coast style that's not overboard bitter. Because I think if you get one that's too bitter, right, it's just going to kind of kill the flavor of the extra sharp. But if you can find one that's kind of a little Cascade, kind of fresh hopped, but without a lot of bitterness, I think that tends to pair pretty well. So I guess you'll have to kind of go out and explore different brands to find that, but just trying to find one that doesn't go too overboard. And then I think one of the things that I like to serve sometimes, especially if I get a piece that's kind of pretty crumbly, is just kind of buying a thing of guava paste and just kind of cutting those into cubes and then just having a nice crumbly piece of extra sharp with a little cube of guava paste kind of toothpicked on the top. I think just kind of keeping it simple like that, I think tends to work out pretty well. So I think somebody had told me years ago it's called Romeo and Juliet when you did that, but with guava paste and then old cheddar. But I've never seen the reference since. But it's a good mix. So
Well, and I did a demo where we did a cube of the extra sharp cheese with a hunk of divine chocolate and a half of a grape. And I think like that was just so novel to a lot of people, like to combine those three things, like chocolate and cheese, but like that is a real thing. Like that belongs on your charcuterie board. And so being able to pair like a nice piece of dark chocolate, I think works better than a milk chocolate with the cheese. Like you get some really interesting flavors, and then you throw the grape on there, and it's sweet and it's tangy and it's nice.
In my book, at the end of each chapter, there's 12 pairing chapters. I have a cheese board, and in the cheese board, I have 2 or 3 chocolates listed with charcuterie, with spreads, with that. So you can kind of pick and choose what you think would go best for you and what you like. You know, not everybody likes dark chocolate, and some people just like milk chocolate. But so when they do work together, you can use that as an option. But I love chocolate and cheese. And IDDBA, I did a chocolate and cheese session with beer. And believe it or not, it works out perfectly. Wine too, of course.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, anybody that's watching this is that, you know, if you're getting intimidated in the least bit about talking about flavor profiles, I mean, really, I mean, this is supposed to be approachable and really fun, right? And I think one thing to always remember, like each individual person's kind of like a snowflake, like our actual personal flavor profiles are quite a bit different from each other. So I think, you know, as you're watching this, it's a lot of it is just kind of thinking about what you're experiencing, kind of, you know, again, having fun with it, like getting a chance to try a little bit of chocolate and try a little bit of this cheese and just see what happens with it. And again, we all have a little bit of uniqueness going on with our flavor, with our palate. So, you know, don't let anybody tell you it doesn't work. You know, just kind of get adventurous and see what you come up with. So we're hopefully just giving you some ideas and some reasons why it might work, but ultimately kind of get a little adventurous out there and combine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not evident based on the fact that the slide you were just looking at has our Seriously Sharp with the red and black plaid label, and the hat that Craig is wearing is red and black plaid, I, as a Cabot farmer, the only thing anyone gifts me at this point is red and black plaid items. So napkins and slippers and flannel sheets. Like my bed has red and black plaid flannel sheets on it. And so somehow this cheese has become like the ultimate Cabot cheddar, like the symbolic cheddar for all of our cheese and all of our products. And so I believe, if I'm correct, originally the Seriously Sharp was actually our Hunter's cheddar, and it got that red and black plaid on it because hunters in Vermont were wearing red and black plaid. So it was very specifically targeting that demographic. And because at the time, who else was going to want to eat something so tangy? Like the consumers of New England and the East Coast just weren't quite maybe there to accept something that was that wild. And in fact, as time has passed, I think consumers have actually they've yearned for it. They've gotten engaged with it. They've accepted it, and in fact now they look for it. So there was in fact a name change from Hunter's cheddar to Seriously Sharp, because there were enough people that really actually like it has become a standard in grocery stores all across the country. But that red and black plaid, that has stayed. And so it is used in most of our marketing materials. I mean, even the extra sharp, we've still maintained the plaid, but we've just changed the color. And so for me, like this cheese just represents what I am so proud of as a Cabot farmer. Like this cheese is wild. And I think as a farmer member of this cooperative, to have something that is a little bit out of the ordinary that can be our show horse. Like Craig talked about the workhorse, but we've also got a show horse. And for me, like this cheese and the fact that we have it as a cracker cut, as a shred, as an 8-ounce, as a 2-pound, as a 3-pound. You can literally buy a 3-pound block of seriously sharp cheddar. And so, I mean, for my family growing up, that was our holiday gift. That is what we gave people in our, like, that weren't involved on the farm. They would get a 2 or 3-pound block of seriously sharp cheese from us. So this cheese has history. It has done an evolution as it's kind of gained interest and appeal by a wider audience. But if you haven't had Cabot, I would say try this one.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Amanda's nailed it on kind of just being the show horse, right? And I think it's, especially nowadays in the grocery store, it's kind of hard finding products that aren't always like where consistency is completely king, right? So like kind of what I spoke about before, extra sharp being kind of every time you open that, we want to have that same flavor profile going on. But again, what Amanda talked to originally about was kind of the idea of like calling it hunters, you know, before we moved to seriously sharp. You know, like with natural aging on the cheese process, you're gonna have more interesting flavors that kind of develop over time that you didn't expect to, right? And that's kind of where hunters originally came from. Was, you know, we get to a point where we had, you know, a lot of this old product that didn't really match people's expectations of extra sharp, but it was really an excellent cheese, right? So the idea was to kind of put it out on the market and call it hunters, because if you're from New England and you've spent any time at deer camps, I mean, the idea is that, you know, look, a hunter is somebody that's kind of, they've been out all day long, kind of trekking through the woods. You know, you're getting together with a few of the guys and gals at your deer camp that night, and, you know, you're pretty much ravenous, and you like big, bold flavors, and kind of a big, bold, old cheese like a Hunter's was kind of like a, you know, just a kind of a big event, right? And so that's kind of like kind of that playing off of that ravenous of Hunter's at the end of the day, of wanting big, bold flavors. So, and again, over time, we kept the plaid that Hunters are known for and then transitioned over. So I think, again, what's fun about this, it is kind of like a little bit more of an adventure kind of getting this cheese. So again, the flavor profiles in there will be good. You know, we can always get rid of cheese that develops poorly, but, you know, and sometimes too, when we have these older categories, like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, you know, our forecasters aren't always perfect. So sometimes we might have a little too much old cheese. We need to find a home for it. Again, we don't want to necessarily put that into extra sharp. We want to keep that consistency. So sometimes kind of older, more unique cheese will get kicked into seriously sharp. So yeah, so I think a little bit wider profile. So you're going to get, you know, more acid flavor on this sometimes, a lot more opportunity to get sweetness, maybe fruitiness, and yeah, nuttiness. So this one, I'm really curious to see what you came up with for different pairing options. So,
well, you know, it's interesting because I have done a lot of cheddars across the board, and you know, this does take it up to a nice tangy level where we get that. I think what I said before with the extra sharp was that we have a kind of like a Myers lemon. Well, this kind of pushes into a lemon lime tang. There's a nice tanginess to it. There's a nice little saltiness to that. But again, I can still taste the butter back there. You know, I mean, it's still in there without interfering or being lost in it. So I really want to capitalize on that and bring out a little bit more butter. So that's why I chose the Boston Lager of Sam Adams. It's a Vienna lager, again, very similar to the first one, where maltiness is going to really help kind of bound out and bring out a little bit more of that, the buttery flavors. And it balances out to me just a little bit more. And not that I don't mind the sharpness. I mean, that's the point of it. But you know, you can really stretch this out. It's got enough latitude and bandwidth here to really do a lot more. So cracker wise, I'm using the Fire Hook, and this is their sea salt, because you know, you don't really need any flavor to it that much. And then I went to my old friend here, the Fat Toad Farm, and I really love bourbon with cheddars. I mean, they really go well together. Well, bourbon goes well with everything, but you know, so they do a really nice bourbon here in their caramel, and so that's the direction that I went there. So we get a little bit of sweetness, we get a little bit of that musky bourbon flavor, and then we get the nice structure of the crackers, and then the maltiness. So that's the direction I went with this.
Great. Yeah, that's some fun ideas.
So so I served in the Peace Corps, and while I was in Peace Corps, there was a few foods that I fantasized about, that I had dreams about, because I was in a mud hut with no running water or electricity. And so the first thing that I had when I came home, I'm not kidding, was a toasted jalapeno cheddar sourdough ciabatta. So that come from a bakery like half an hour north of us. But so you've got the jalapeno that's in that ciabatta, toasted with just a little bit of butter, and then raspberry jam, and then slices of seriously sharp cheese. And like, I dreamt about that while I was serving in Zambia, and it was as good as I imagined it to be. So like, I really like for this one, like, and maybe from a professional opinion, that's like too much zazz going on with an already tangy cheese. But like, I really, really love the jalapeno with the raspberry, with the seriously sharp cheese, on the texture of like a really nice local sourdough bread that just has like all those pockets in it. That for me is just like, that's perfection.
I like the idea of adding the sweet heat to it. Yeah, that sounds actually really good.
Yeah, the Fat Toad does such a great job, that little bit of caramel sweetness in there, and then that bourbon flavor really balances out. It brings out, again, tones down a little bit of the tanginess, which when you put all of these together, you do get all those flavors. Nothing is lost in there, and that's really nice. But you pick up little picks where all of a sudden it's like, ooh, there's a little bourbon. Ooh, there's a little cheddar. Ooh, there's a little the sea salt. So it's nice that way.
Nice. And I've done one working with like Fat Toad, like kind of working with the caramel from Fat Toad, where kind of try to come off with like a knockoff of like a s'more, but using cheddar, right? So just using, kind of using a chocolate of your choice. Kind of maybe I haven't actually used Effie's, but I could see that working really well with the texture. And then just putting a little bit of the caramel on top of a little bit of old cheddar, just because I think that adding that extra caramel kind of gives it almost like a marshmallow flavor to it. So yeah, just, if you're looking for something creative, but I think when it comes to coming up with, one of my friends turned me onto this idea, was basically using, just cooking it like a kielbasa, right? Cutting it up into little quarters, and then just kind of kicking it in a dry rub, and then just doing little pepperoncinis, and then just having basically on a toothpick combine like piece of old cheddar, Cabot cheddar, dry rub kielbasa and a pepperoncini. Usually makes for a pretty good little appetizer. So
I had a guy send me some habanero sauces, and I like a little bit of heat, but I'm not that big in the habaneros. But one drop on the cheddar is absolutely fabulous, and that's what you were saying about that little bit of heat on there, and that butter just kind of cools it down, and you get the habanero flavor without the heat. And I think that's really cool.
That's great.
Kind of like a cheddar phenomena. All right, anything else on this fabulous cheddar?
Yeah, I think this one, I think one of the things that you can really do with this cheese, again, if you've got a few people over, just have people taste it and start talking about it. Again, it's the consistency, it's a little bit wider profile with what we're allowing here. So I think it's a fun conversational cheese if you get a fun crew that likes to talk about that.
All right, so I actually once had somebody, so they were doing it was a Swiss exchange student that we had for many years, and then she ended up staying and marrying a local guy, and so she Swiss, and so cheese and bread and potatoes and pickles are just like what they do. And so she had asked us to bring cheese for a cheese board, and she specifically said, could you try to bring something other than cheddar? And I was like, whoa. So I mean, that's just like, that's our lifeblood. But anyways, so we managed. It wasn't easy, but we managed.
Well,
okay.
I have access to a lot of cheeses, and I get asked in my classes, what's your favorite cheese? And I have to say that, you know, as much as I may like something that may be a little bit more exotic, my refrigerator is the substance is cheddar. You know, we use more cheddar than we use anything else. It's so universal. And, you know, you can spice up a dish with it, but tang it up, or you can just make it more buttery just by the different types of cheddar that you have. And it's just really amazing, the differences that we get from just cheddar.
Yep, really versatile.
Yep.
I will say the most notable thing I have to say about horseradish cheddar is that I was demoing cheese at an event, and this is not a political statement particularly, but the scheduler for Hillary Rodham Clinton, when she was the Secretary of State, let me know that this is HRC's preferred cheese. So she would actually go to the grocery store to buy horseradish Cabot cheddar for Hillary Clinton. So I'm making no statement about Hillary other than she likes horseradish cheese. This for me is used as like a way to, like, it would go on to a dish. Like, I don't necessarily have the ability to sit and snack on horseradish cheddar. I'm a bit of a lightweight, but it does have nice texture. So when you're slicing it, it does hold form well. It doesn't crumble like the seriously sharp cheddar does. And if you really want to like surprise somebody with a cheese board, I mean, you just like put this in there and don't let anyone know, and they're going to get a kick. Like, they're going to know that they just ate some horseradish cheddar.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to if you like heat, yeah, then if you like specifically horseradish heat, obviously, this is a great cheese for it. So I mean, what's unique about this, for at least the Cabot lineup, this is the only processed cheese that we make. But, you know, in order to make it, why it's quite a bit different, you know, this isn't exactly like a piece of Velveeta, right? One of the things that we do, we make this in-house, and, you know, we've got this small piece of equipment. One of the whole original reason for coming up with it was, you know, what I've alluded to earlier is, you know, sometimes we might have older cheese that it's not meeting any of the profiles and we need to find a home for it. So one of the things that we've done over the years, we've developed this recipe for horseradish, which is, you know, typically a lot of processed cheeses are kind of just made up of kind of whatever kind of younger cheeses people can kind of get their hands off the block market. A huge portion of what our recipe calls for on this kind of specific one is for older cheddar, right? So if you get a chance to actually feel the texture on this one, like it's got like more of a cheddar texture to it, with like kind of a slight, you know, little bit slight of a processed cheese flavor feel to it. So, you know, not only is the kind of the body on it kind of have a little more of a cheddar texture to it, but the flavor, you know, you get a lot of old cheddar flavor in there also, right? Which is not something you always get with processed cheese. So yeah, when you're trying this, so you kind of get you get the benefit of having like the functionality of kind of a meltable processed cheese, but you also get the huge benefit of having like a lot of cheddar flavor and a lot of horseradish flavor. So it's it's not as big and hot as our habanero cheddar, but it's got a lot of heat to it. So if you like habanero heat, I would highly recommend trying this cheese.
Well, I have to say that when I'm a huge fan of horseradish, I think it's just a great accompaniment to a lot of meats and things. As a matter of fact, when I was starting to put it together, I was trying to think about, you know, exactly how I would use it in an actual, you know, recipe or on a cheese board. And then I started thinking about some of the different characteristics that it has. So what surprised me is, for me, the first taste, as soon as you take a bite of it, I get cheddar. Then all of a sudden it creeps up on you, and all of a sudden your eyes will tear a little bit from the horseradish. You know, it's got a nice creep to it. It's not a I don't think it's as much in your face. You have to like horseradish, and if you do, then it's fabulous. So I'm pairing this up with the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which I think the hoppiness and the horseradish work really well together. I think that there's a symbolic way of them that they kind of work together, and it takes a little bit of that sting out of the horseradish. And then I'm not using a jam. I really can't think of a jam that I would do with this. I mean, you know, you could use charcuterie very easily with this. But what I tried earlier is brewers, this is spent grain that they make these pita chips out of. And this is sea salt and rosemary, and it absolutely is fabulous with the cheese. And so I was thinking, well, you know what, I'm done. And then I thought, you know, it needs something else. So that's when I came up with the little gherkin. And I thought that that would be really fun to have a little bit of a tangy little gherkin with it. So the horseradish cheddar, the pita crisp, and a little bite of a little gherkin.
Right. Yeah. And Mila in the comic section recommended trying tomatoes to pair with it.
Yeah.
That actually, I really like that combination with the gherkin. I wouldn't have actually.
Tomato jam. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
And actually, and tomato jam is also a thing that whenever I have it, I realize how much I like it, but I never seem to like actually have it in my own refrigerator. And I would say that this for me is, I guess I would also choose a cracker that didn't have a particular, like nothing too salty and nothing too seasoned. An interesting point, the fact that you have a brewer's grain-based cracker. For your viewers, we actually feed our cows brewer's grain. So that's one of the ingredients in their diet. And I learned that my cows are particular. They prefer Anheuser-Busch grains to one of our local craft breweries. So I have Busch cows and not like local craft brew cows. When I started blending in this other craft brewery grain, my cows wouldn't eat their feed. They didn't like it. So brewer's grain has a lot of interesting uses, but it's also going into, like, indirectly the cheese that we make because my cows are eating it. But yeah, so I think for me personally, like, I mean, a pale ale would be my preferred drink also. Just because I don't want too much overwhelming things going on in my mouth. And this cheese, it's got bite.
I have to tell you that the gherkin, the sour gherkin, and the pita chip, and this is just absolutely fabulous. This is, I've now declared that this is my dinner tonight because it's just so fabulous all together. And if you think that the horseradish is a little strong for you, when you put these together, it blends in and it becomes part of it, not an over part, just a part of it. So it's a really nice balance of flavors.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think, I mean, when I look at kind of how I use horseradish, I mean, as an ingredient, I think the biggest one I do is if I'm ever making Philly cheesesteaks, not to desecrate the name of Philly cheesesteak, but if you're getting creative with it, I actually think this is a good cheese to be able to add to it, right? To kind of, if you're looking to add a little extra spice to it. But otherwise, I think it actually works really well as just a regular table cheese for your charcuterie boards, you know,
Yeah.
like what you mentioned with the dill pickle, you know, I think a lot of, if you add pickled veggies a lot to your boards, I think it works well with that. I think, you know, a lot of encased meats, you know, they tends to work pretty well with. And then, you know, I've tinkered with different jams. I'll have to try the tomato jam. I'm excited to try that pairing, but for whatever reason, I think like blackberry or raspberry seem to work pretty well with it also. So even just doing like a little piece of kind of toasted baguette and horseradish with a little bit of jam on top, I think tends to work well. But I think with that body, you know, not only the flavor intensity, but kind of that kind of crumbly body to it, I think it tends to work well just as a table cheese anyway on your board.
Well, I could easily see grating this on a roast beef sandwich. I mean, that would be, you know, such a classic direction with some pickles and a little hint of mustard on there. That'd be just fabulous. Yeah.
And again, with the football playoffs coming up, little roast beef sliders or something like that, I think this would be a great cheese for us. So
That's true. That's true. You know, it's you know, when you're blending, and I honestly believe this, is that a lot of companies that blend cheese really want that flavor to be the predominant part, but you really have a nice balance between it. It's that nice start of the cheddar, and then it creeps up. That's really, really excellent. It's to me, it's not overpowering, but again, I love the flavor, the characteristics. My palate can handle the intensity of it, and so I think it's really just well balanced as a blended cheese.
Yeah, like I said, I mean,
Good
I don't know really many people out there of any other companies that are really, again, making a cheese like this where you require such old cheese to be such a huge component of what you're trying to do. So I think that's why you're kind of getting those big flavors and kind of crumbly body to it. So
Yeah.
And to your point, like I think this is the ultimate Super Bowl cheese. Like the heat, like it's something that I am more inclined to want to eat this in the winter when I want to be warm and I want comfort foods. Like this is not going to be necessarily on my like summer July 4th like cheese spread, but I think as a way to incorporate it into something that you're doing that's cheesy, whether it's a dip or not, like whatever it is, quesadillas, this would be perfect for Super Bowl or maybe Valentine's Day. Maybe you want to spice it up.
yeah, I think I've seen people kind of give the same reaction as the Alpine cheese, right? Where you've got, we've all tried different cheddars and can appreciate cheddars from across the board, but every once in a while when you kind of try something really unique, we're like, okay, I think kind of the Alpine and this horseradish, I think have kind of done that for people when I've ever had people tasting them.
When you were mentioning the Valentine's Day, I have a CBS morning show that I have to do a Valentine's Day cheese board. And I never thought about this. So what else do you do with this for Valentine's Day? Is it just the cheese?
Well, actually, I'm gonna be doing a segment on Midday Maryland, and so my recipe that I'm doing is cheddar biscuits, because biscuits are my love language. Like, let the world know, like that is just. There is something very special about a flaky, buttery biscuit, and then you throw some shreds of cheese in there. And so whether it's the extra sharp or horseradish, like you can go a lot of different ways, but that is literally going to be my Valentine's Day Cabot like theme is cheddar biscuits.
Well, what I could do is take the squares and use my cookie cutter and make little hearts out of them.
I think that there's like so many ways to make cheese appear like a gift from the heart. Like my customers for our dairy farm, they also, in addition to like my family members getting cheese, we give them a gift box of Cabot cheese. Like I don't know how else to show you how much I appreciate you than giving you lots of cheese.
You have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up here?
I'll just say the other way, and Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are still some stores that offer the Alpine as it's labeled as Orange Meadow. So
yes, in the specialty cheese section.
So in the case that you're looking for the Alpine and you don't necessarily see this, you would otherwise be able to see it in a package with the label Orange Meadow, which was one of the original founders of the Cabot Cooperative. So it's a little throwback, a little callback to some of the people that kind of made this all possible.
Well, to say also that in addition to these cheeses, you also have some heritage cheeses as well, correct?
So there's 4 items that are going to be in a similar appearance label. So it's going to have a black with like a parchmenty looking label. So there's Farmhouse Reserve, White Oak, New York Vintage, and
Yep.
Alpine. Did I do that right?
That's it. You got it.
It's almost like,
and they're all basic. It's almost like you've bought them before. Yeah, and they're kind of, like 2 of those in there, the New York one and their Farmhouse. I mean, they're basically kind of older versions of the Extra Sharp and Seriously Sharp, respectively, right? They've just got a lot kind of bigger flavors to them. And yeah, we've got a White Oak one also that's kind of a heavier sweet forward. But again, if you're looking for something unique and you haven't tried Alpine, like I just give it a try and again, impress some of your friends and family.
All right.
I guess, yeah, just to wrap up also, I mean, I think, again, I think not only do we kind of offer that proposition of, try out our cheese, we've got something I think it's going to be really unique. Again, it's naturally aged. We've got a lot of fun flavors going on there. But again, if you're also kind of supporting, this, we can only do this because we're farmer owned, right? At the end of the day, our board of directors are farmers. We're not watching a stock price go up and making decisions based on that. It's based on, farmers like Amanda that, they want to make sure that when they're buying, not only do we have to stay profitable, but they also want to make sure that the product that she's picking up for her family at the store is going to be high end. And, that's, if you kind of want to back a business model like that, like a cooperative, then, hopefully we can offer you, a really memorable cheese experience, and you're able to support our farmers in the same time.
Well, Craig, Amanda, thank you so much for coming by today. And, I really greatly appreciate you taking the time and being here. And of course, all the fabulous cheeses. Thank you so much. So I hope
thanks for all the suggestions. I'm looking forward to trying out some of these pairings.
All right. Well, I have this posted probably tomorrow or by the weekend with the actual pairings that I have. I put that on Facebook, but it'll be on my YouTube channel, Michael Landis Cheese. And if you're interested in a book with 300 pairings in it, this beer, cheese, and stories. It's all about how they work together in that. And you can find this on, of course, Amazon or my website, which is michaellandischeese.com. All right. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful wintry Vermont winter.
We will do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Good night.